In the age of social media, the search for information's been made easier. Not only can we find resources, but we've also got the people we'd like to learn from, just a click away. Jordan Peterson's made a great name for himself in both academia and pop culture. He's got many followers, and love him or hate him, the man's incredibly well read. Today, we'll be diving into 10 books he recommends everyone should read. Coming in at number 10, we've got Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Recounting his time in concentration camps during the reign of the Nazis, Frankl produced one of the most enduring works on the tenacity of the human spirit. His deep and thorough dive into what makes us tick makes this book a masterclass in how to take on life on your own terms. At the heart of the book is Frankl's concept of logotherapy. He puts forth the theory that it isn't pleasure we flock to, but a sense of individual meaning. Sound familiar? Yep. Peterson often brings up this point in his discussions. The idea is a simple one, but it's super powerful. Reading this book, you'll grit your teeth as Mr. Frankl reports the atrocities of humanity gone insane in World War II, but he'll pull you right out of it by sharing with you how he dealt with the whole thing. The writer's also a psychologist, so guess this makes total sense on Peterson's list. Next up at number 9, it's Effective Neuroscience by Jaak Panksepp. Simply put, the book's about the emotional tendencies found in mammals according to science. But we all know it can't be exactly simple if the University of Toronto's Professor Emeritus recommends it. But that's the beauty of this book. It presents a lot of very complex concepts very simply, focusing on where feelings emerge from and what methods we've got for understanding them. It reports scientific ideas in a very readable manner. Peterson called it one of the best books on the neuroscience of emotion. Explaining it further, he added that it contains separate chapters on phenomena we're all familiar with, such as sleep, fear responses, pleasure, anger, and social loss, etc. It goes a bit further and even gets into some of the subtle topics, such as maternal emotions. Well, sounds like it's got all we need to learn about the emotional components of our lives. We'd love to pick this one up off the shelf. Following this, there's Panzram by Thomas Gaddis at number 8. This is a tale of tragedy. Let's set the stage for the story. Panzram was born on a farm and breathed his last at the U.S. Penitentiary, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, at the age of 39. In between those years, he saw a great amount of suffering and remained in prison for most of his life, starting when he was only 12 years old. Panzram's journey shows us a look into the ways a man can be needlessly cruel. The incidents are especially graphically reported, making one stop in horror. The author explores the sociological and historical content in the story too. During a lecture, Peterson talked about the book. A physician Panzram becomes friends with in prison encourages him to write about his life. He shared that his account of Panzram's life is unique because he explores the dark motivations that people can have, but he also lets you know exactly what he thought all the way through. Up next, the 7th spot, held by The Myth of Mental Illness, told by Thomas S. This book will totally change the way you think about the profession of psychiatry and its practices. It lifts the veil off of how patients are sometimes treated. Sass argues that sometimes understandable behaviors in people's lives are diagnosed as mental illnesses. This sort of makes them go, well, I'm not responsible. It's this problem I have. Surely it can't be as simple as that. There's gotta be some truth to people struggling with mental disorders. Well, you'll have to read the book to find out. The author also labels Freudian teaching as pseudoscience and presents the notion that psychiatry shouldn't be allowed to make its way into all the aspects of modern life. Peterson called the book a classic and suggested that if someone's interested in psychology, they should definitely give it a read. Moving on at number 6, we have Homer's The Iliad. This staple of classic literature is as important now as it was when it was first written. The work's centuries old and was written in about 800 BC. It's an epic story of revenge and war. Dr. Peterson recommends it if you want to understand human nature. He says if that's what you're into, you can't do better than Homer. Further on at number 5, we've got The Painted Bird by Jerzy Kosinski. This story is about an olive-skinned boy with dark hair who's left to fend for himself when his parents just desert him. Alone, he moves from village to village during the era of the Second World War. His journey's a harsh one, and there's rarely any comfort or care to be found. Through this character, the themes of adolescence and adult life are explored side by side. We're shown a world where there's just too much of everything that'll hurt you, hate, and violence. It's written with a tone that stirs the imagination to life. The tale seems like a myth being presented. It's just as important now as it was when it was first published. Peterson recalled that it is a terrifying book, and he shared that it's had a part to play in his overall intellectual development. Next, we have the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Now, you've probably heard Dr. Peterson talk about this one. What you need to know is that it's a huge book. It's got a total of 3 volumes and was written in the time between 1958 to 1968. The author's Russian, and he was a Soviet dissident. Gulag is the word for the labor camps that existed in the Soviet Union. Solzhenitsyn provides us with a complete picture of the Gulag through his own experience in one. The book's amazing in its thoroughness. Plus, the author's famous for his larger-than-life reporting of Stalin's Soviet Union. Peterson's particularly fond of this title. At number 3, we've got Dostoevsky's masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. This is a book that's known worldwide as a tale of epic proportions. In it, we follow Raskolnikov, who's a poor student grappling with thoughts of nihilism and despair. But ultimately, the story's an eternal one, the fight between good and evil. Raskolnikov kills a pawnbroker and justifies it by thinking that she was contributing nothing but greed to society, so he can take the law into his own hands. Later, he's so overcome by guilt that he turns himself in and is sent to prison. The beauty of the story is that it explores human morality and its consequences in our lives. In it, we learn that suffering is a part of life, and that happiness just can't exist without it. Drawing from religion and philosophy, the book's a staple of world literature. Next, at number 2, there's The Red Book by Carl Jung. Jung's one of many influences that Peterson draws from in his intellectual life. This book's a product of the author's dreams and the experiences he lived through in them. The Canadian clinical psychologist called this highly unusual book to be a great help in understanding the human mind. Finally, at number 1, we have the Bible. Peterson said that the Bible should be read by all university students. He believes that it's a book with a very complex structure and that the themes in it are universal. He shared that the book can teach us a lot about human nature. So as Peterson puts it, read it and don't be lazy about it. Boy, that list will keep you busy for a long time. Dr. Peterson doesn't just recommend books, he writes them too. Here are 3 of his best ones so far. At number 3, we have Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief. This book discusses how people from different backgrounds came up with myths so similar in structure. It's a product of Peterson's academic research into the matter. He goes on to explore what we can learn from the myths about our own minds and human morality. It's an awesome book that'll teach you a lot if you decide to read it. Next, at the 2nd spot, it's 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. This book is a 12-step guide to taking control of your life by finding your purpose and meaning, taking its content from age-old wisdom and literature. It's as insightful as it is comprehensive. If you want to get your life together, it's a great place to start. At the number 1 spot, we've got Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. This work, it's all about finding a balance through scientific, cultural, and psychological causes of tyranny. Peterson warns us of falling prey to these forces. He encourages us to grapple with the following truth: too much chaos makes us unstable, but too much order takes away our power too.